Let's talk about Kanban boards. They're an excellent way to keep track of the tasks that you have to do day in and day out, and to get a good read on where your matters or your entire caseload stand. Fundamentally, it's a way of keeping track of what stage your case is in or what stage you're looking at to move on to the next phase of the matter. There are lots of different ways to track this, and we'll walk through some in a subsequent video, but I want to give you a basic understanding of how it works. So fundamentally, you could tag these however you like. In this example we have on the screen, we have things that are to do, doing, and done, pretty straightforward. You might have seen something more complicated like this. I believe this is a programmer's setup here. So we have a coding sprint, and they have tasks that are to do. They have WIP, work in progress, term we should probably be familiar with, things for other folks to review, and then obviously they've completed a lot of tasks. They're doing it very simply. You see they have a giant whiteboard there. They're using Post-it notes, maybe some dry erase markers. Nothing complicated about what they've set up. And it's pretty clear if you were to walk into this room where things stood. They're working on some things. There are a few things for people to review yet, and a whole bunch of stuff has been completed. How might we apply that to your caseload? Well, I went ahead and I drafted up a little bit of a Kanban board here. So let's say you had different matters, and I've just listed them by last name. So there are some that you have to start. Those are the to-do ones. There are some that you're working on right now. Those would be the in-process ones. And then there are some that you have completed, and those would be the done ones. Very straightforward setup. Pretty much mirrors what we've got going on in our initial slide. To do, doing, done. Of course, none of our caseloads are this simple, and if they are, God bless you, I'm envious. Let's say instead we had some more stages. We had something that we were doing for intake. So we have prospective clients. Maybe we're waiting on an initial consultation. Maybe we're looking for an engagement agreement to be signed. We have a stage where we're gathering information. So if we were doing any sort of matter, we want to collect the facts, maybe evidence, maybe some documentation, whatever we might need. And then there's a stage where we can actually do some work. So that would be the work file stage. And then, of course, for most of our matters, we'd want to close them out, send a final bill, do a closing letter, that sort of thing. So a little bit more complicated. And then just to add another stage there, maybe you think in terms of not just I can work on the file, but maybe I'm also waiting on some folks. So the waiting on client could be the same as gathering info, but maybe we want to break it out, give you a little bit more of a clear picture. I could be waiting on the client. I could be waiting on a third party. Maybe it's some asset information that I need from a bank. Maybe I'm waiting on discovery from another party or from the state. Then I can work the file, and eventually I can close the file. As you can see, this is pretty static. I'm just using PowerPoint to demonstrate these different columns or swim lanes. And if I wanted to go in and edit it, I'd have to drop out of PowerPoint, of course, and then go in and maybe I need to move brown or do something like that. So I got to pop out this little smart art thing, and maybe the Browns have provided the information I need. So I'm going to delete it from there. And then it becomes my responsibility to go in and work the file. So I'll hit plus and we'll put brown in here. And then we've updated our swim lane to move brown from the waiting on client to I can work the file. Not the handiest thing in the world to do. In PowerPoint, I wouldn't recommend it. Check out our other video to show some tools that would be more appropriate for using this style of organization to help your practice. Let's talk about how to use some of the great to-do applications out there to build Kanban-style columns or swim lanes for the different stages that your cases or matters might be in. On the screen, I've got Todoist. It's a fantastic product. It's not alone in being able to do this, so don't feel like because I'm showing you Todoist, you have to decide if you need to move your tasks from wherever they live now into Todoist. There are lots of products out there that let you do this swim lane or Kanban style organization of columns. Let's go ahead. We'll build a quick one for estate planning in Todoist. So I'm just going to go over to the projects area here and say that I want to add a new project. And I'm going to call it just Demo Estate Plan Kanban Board. Hit add, and it pops me into it. Now what you might notice is it shows me that I can add tasks. And if I just start typing tasks, it's just going to be a list of tasks. As you know, there are tons of programs out there that do that. Not super exciting. What we want to do here is change the view to the board, and then that creates our first empty swim lane. If we're doing estate planning, what might be some of the stages? Let's take a look and we'll add a few together. Well, maybe we have one for intake, and depending on how many lanes you want to have, you might break down intake into different stages. Maybe you have one for information gathering, so it's a very broad one. In our previous video, I showed you could have 3 swim lanes, you could have 4, you could have 15 if you wanted. Depends on how you want to break down your stages for an individual type of matter. So let's say we want to be a little bit more descriptive instead of just gather information. Maybe we want to say that we have sent questionnaire to the client, and then perhaps we want another one where we're going to receive questionnaire back from the client. So we want to capture that in the process. And then of course, we want to review the questionnaire that the client has sent us. So once we've reviewed the questionnaire, what might we do? Well, we might say, well, we might have questions from the client or for the client. That's entirely possible. I'll show you how you might address that with what we've already created. We might then draft documents. We might send the documents for review, send to client for review. And then maybe we next have, now you're thinking, well, we might need to make changes based on what the client says. That's possible. Let me show you how to address that in a minute. Next thing we might do as far as the process is maybe we have execution of documents. And then we might need to close the file. So fairly straightforward, fairly simple layout. And you see, depending on the product, you might have to scroll left or right, depending on the swim lane count that you have. And a lot of times you can hide some parts of the interface to make it a little bit more visible. So if we've got that up, we could start adding different matters. So maybe we have the Smith matter is in intake. Maybe the, let's say, Johnson matter, where you're waiting to send out the questionnaire. We've got another one that needs a questionnaire. Let's put Williams on there. And then maybe we're waiting to receive the questionnaire back from Brown. And maybe we need to review the Jones questionnaire and maybe also the Garcia questionnaire. What else might we want to do? Maybe Miller's waiting on us to draft documents. And maybe also Davis is. Maybe we can tell at some point we've got a bit of a log jam based on, if we fill out our Kanban board, we might see where our process is getting stuck when we go from client intake to a closed matter. Maybe we've got to send documents to, say, Rodriguez to review. And let's go ahead and maybe we don't have anybody on execution right now, but maybe we're waiting on some stuff to close out the Martinez file. So as things change as you go through, maybe you've sent out the questionnaire to Johnson, then we can just drag it from left to right in the process. So now we know that the Johnson matter, we're waiting to receive that questionnaire back. Maybe we got the Jones questionnaire back, we've looked over it, and we've got some questions. So we could click in here, for example, we could add a subtask that says draft email with questions to Jones. Jones questions, that'll work. And so we could add, in the case of, again, to do us here, we can do subtasks. And if I close out, it gives me a little prompt that I've got a subtask there. Now you might think we don't have a swim lane, a column in our Kanban board to say, send it to Jones again. Well, no, but if we're going to send questions back, I'm going to take a liberal view of this questionnaire column, and I'm just going to drag Jones, not right to left, but left to right, so that we know that Jones has not so much regressed, but we're repeating part of the process because we've got some questions based on our review. Same thing you might imagine if you sent the documents to Rodriguez for review. Rodriguez might come back with comments. Maybe they want to change some of the appointees or make some change to a trust provision. Well, that means then you're going to drag Rodriguez from sent to client to review, not unfortunately to execution of documents, but back to drafting because you've got to make a few changes. And a lot of these programs will, as you saw, let you add subtasks. You could add comments. For some of them, you could attach documents. So depending on your current workflow, maybe it's a good idea to attach documents. Maybe you attach a link to wherever the documents are stored in Dropbox or NetDocuments or whatever your provider is. Lots of functionality, pretty darn easy to build out one of these Kanban boards. Just to show you one that I did a little bit earlier, I'm going to click on this other project that is estate planning. And you see here, I have a fairly similar layout. I've added a few subtasks to the initial consult, so I need to schedule it. And then I'm going to send them a flyer that has some things for them to think about. And I want to make sure both of those are captured. And then when both of those are done, I could drag Smith from initial consult over to sent client questionnaire and so forth. Naturally, you would probably build out one of these for each major area that you practice in. And again, I'm showing you Todoist, but if you're a Microsoft 365 subscriber, you have access to Planner, which does pretty much the same thing, a little bit differently, of course, and there are other great products out there. So plenty of opportunities to build your Kanban board, your swim lanes in lots of great to-do applications, one of which you might already be paying for. And you see one over here. Well, you'll have to see that in our next video. I mentioned in the other Kanban videos, how do you pick a program? And there are tons of them out there, many of them very, very good. So where do you start to decide whether a particular product is right for you if you're interested in doing this Kanban style organization of matters and cases? Well, a lot of them have free trials, and so that's always a good place to start. Usually they're somewhere between 7 and 30 days. So if you want to take a look at one, sign up for the free one, get an idea of whether you like it, whether it's compatible with what you're already using, because we do want to keep in mind that you already have a tech stack of some sort. And the more we can build into that, assuming you're happy with it, rather than recreating existing situations, then that's probably a good idea. So the one I demoed in a previous video is Todoist. It's a great product. If you go to their website, you'll notice that they do have different pricing tiers, and they have one level that's free for life. And in fact, that's the one I demoed in the prior video. So if you thought those are the right features, those are sufficient features, then assuming you're not going to have tons and tons and tons of different boards to track different practice areas, you're probably good to go, at least to start with the free one. And then when you notice something missing, then maybe it's time to spend money. A lot of the products offer several different integrations with other tools out there. So that's something to consider. Does the product that I'm thinking of for doing my Kanban organization work with what I already have? So check into that. This is the example from Todoist. If you're in the Microsoft camp, I did flash this one on another video. And so maybe you've started using Microsoft To Do or Planner. It integrates with a fair amount of things. And if you're already on the Microsoft 365 structure of paying for the subscription, you get access to both To Do and Planner for free. So more than a good opportunity to give them a shot. Integrations on the Planner side are a little more programmatic than they are plug and play. Many of the to-do applications offer plug and play type interfaces. Planner's a little bit more sophisticated, so keep that in mind, especially if you're busy running a practice. It might not be the best one out of the gate. But again, if you're a 365 subscriber, don't focus on how complex an integration might be. Start using it, see if you like it, and if you like it, then think about whether it's worth spending the money or the time, as the case may be, to make it function better from an integration perspective. Last one I'm going to show you, and we'll spend a few minutes on this to show you a few advanced features that might be worth considering that would be built into the product. The product I'm going to show you here is called Teamwork. It's what we at Lawyerist use internally. We've been very happy with it, used it for many years. Again, just because we've liked it and have used it doesn't mean it's necessarily right for you, but it's probably worth a look if you're in the market for one of these products. It integrates with a ton of different things, and it does offer a couple of advanced features that I'm going to show you with this very simple workflow here. So you notice that I have a list. We're not looking at a board yet. We will look at a board in just a minute. But I have a list here that shows a major topic. I'm going to do speaking for a bar association on estate planning in this case. And then I've got a few subtopics. I've got that I need to prepare materials. I need to make sure I've got the webinar link, and I want to take attendance so that I know how many folks were there to listen to me. You'll notice I have due dates on each of these, and I have a possible checkbox here for the first one where I need to prepare materials, but then for the two subsequent subtasks, I don't have a checkbox. I have a red line and a circle. That means I've set a dependency, meaning I can't confirm the Zoom link until I've sent materials, and I can't take attendance of the webinar until I have the Zoom link, because of course I have to be on the webinar in order to do the webinar, and I'd have to be on the webinar in order to know the attendance. So dependencies, meaning that I can't do one subtask until I do something else. Nice feature, especially if you are in an office with other folks who are working on the same matter, and it takes a while, for example, that you can't review a draft of a document until a paralegal has prepared it. It might be nice to have some of these dependencies. Another thing you'll notice here is that we have different dates. And so, for example, I'm going to send the materials to John Smith on April 2nd, or by April 2nd, and then I have to confirm my Zoom webinar link that I've got it by the 14th, and then I'm taking attendance on the 16th, which is actually the day I'll be speaking. Suppose I want to move a particular date forward or backward. It might be nice if the other dates moved in tandem with my change of date. So let's say, for example, John calls me up and says, hey, we've got a situation we're going to have to move the webinar a week later. I'm probably fine with that. So then I might want to adjust when my materials are due, but I don't just want to adjust when the materials are due. If we're pushing everything by a week, I want everything to be pushed by a week. So down here where it says adjust dependence, so I've got two things that are dependent on me having prepared the materials. I've got the Zoom link that I need to get and make sure I have, and then I've got the taking of attendance. If I bump the sending of materials to John by 1 week from the 2nd to the 9th, you'll see the adjustment there for both confirming the Zoom link and taking attendance at the webinar to the 23rd. So presumably if John says we're bumping the webinar by a week, I bumped the due date for materials, everything else bumped down by a week. Showing you this in a board view with a different automation, which is another aspect of key features that you might be interested in if you're looking for a full-fledged solution that incorporates Kanban boards. Let's jump to the board view, and you see I have this same task of preparing materials to send to John. They're now due on April 9th. Maybe I've gotten to work on some of the materials, so they're no longer in the to-do column. I should move them to the in progress column. That's fine. I want you to watch what happens when I drag it over. So I'm just going to grab this card and move it to in progress. And you notice there, 50% popped up on the screen. What does 50% mean? It means that I have completed approximately half of the work that I estimated for preparing the materials. Simply by moving it from to do to in progress, I have an automation set to change something on that card based on the fact that I moved it from to do to in progress. Let's take a look at that. It's down here under the add automation option. And I'll go to the manage automations, and you'll see that I have two automations set on this board. If I move a card, a task, and its subtasks in this case, from to do to in progress, it's going to move the percentage complete from 0 or from whatever it is to 50%. If I move a card back to the to do column, it's going to change that percent complete back to 0. So let's pop out of this and watch that happen. So I'm going to open the task here just to show you that we've got this information, and we see in the activity where the teamwork bot, that's the automation, set the progress to 50%. Let's click here. I'm going to drag it back from in progress back to do. So maybe something conflicted or I've got to restart it for whatever reason. When I drag it back there, it's going to automatically reset to 0. Let's pop it open and see that that happened. And there we have at the bottom right there, the teamwork bot saying, hey, you moved it to the to-do column. I'm resetting your progress to 0. There are lots of great things that you can do with these types of automations. And if you're looking for this level of automation, the amount of products narrows considerably. So ones to consider if this looks fancy and exciting to you. Obviously, Teamwork does it. We just did it together. Other ones to consider might be Asana or Monday. But again, I think this is a little more advanced. If you're just starting out with the idea of Kanban boards, I would start with one of the free options or maybe Microsoft Planner if you're in the 365 environment. Get comfortable with the idea. Then you know what features are missing that you want or what integrations are missing that you want. And that gives you a roadmap for where to look for a more complete solution.